With us, we have Mr. Najeeb Mahmud Abdussalam. He is the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Trust Synergy Infrastructure Limited. And his topic today is going to be on renewable energy, the infrastructure, renewable energy infrastructure, which is the key to economic development in our nation and globally. So, Mr. Najeeb Mahmud Abdussalam, you have the floor. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to talk about renewable energy infrastructure as key to economic development. As mentioned, my name is Najeeb Mahmud Abdussalam. I'm company in Nigeria, Kano, specific on renewable energy development. So I'm going to have just a pep talk on the opportunities about the renewable energy space and see how we can get our young ones to key into this emerging segment of the economy. But then before we go into what renewable energy is and what infrastructure we really need to understand what infrastructure is. Infrastructure is termed what is referred to as a set of fundamentals or basic fundamentals that are needed for a system to run effectively and efficiently. There are those underlying factors, both physical and otherwise, that makes a system work in harmony for the good of people. Be it schools, be it government, be it society, whatever it is, there are certain basic underlying principles that make that system function well. So whatever it is referred to as an infrastructure, because without it, that system will not function. And there are two distinct types of infrastructure, the hard and the soft infrastructure. The hard and the physical infrastructure that we see, such as buildings, roads, railways, all that physical stuff that we see are part of the hard infrastructure, while the soft infrastructure are the policies, the laws, that make such institutions function, that guide the functionality of such institutions. For instance, this university has certain laws and principles that guide its functionality. Now, those laws, those policies are the soft aspect of physical infrastructure that makes this university. So these are two distinct types of infrastructure that we have. Now, coming to renewable energy is a source of energy that is derived from sources that renews itself continuously. The most known renewable energy is the solar and the hydro. These are the two most known sources of renewable energy. Well, in actual fact, we have other sources of renewable energy. We have the biomass, those coming from the animal dung, agricultural waste, and what have you. These are sources of renewable energy. Then we have those that are derived from waste, such as municipal solid waste, sludge, and what have you. You can also derive some kind of energy from those materials that we think are no more valuable because but in actual sense, it can be utilized and turned into wealth. So there are so many sources of renewable energy. Yeah, but the most known right now is the solar sources, which comes from the sun, and then the hydro, which comes from water, either a rolling stream, dams, and what have you. But science and innovation now has opened other frontiers in the renewable energy space. Now, why is renewable energy infrastructure key to economic development? In this millennium, and the world is going towards net zero. So, how will the world achieve that net zero? It's by turning to renewable energy sources so that those infrastructure that have already been in place and are using some form of energy which is found to be detrimental to the environment can be replaced with same infrastructure but using or powered by or fueled by renewable energy sources. So we are really not changing anything in terms of what is already in existence, but rather enhancing and developing it to meet the current challenges of the world. The COP26 was came to an end a few weeks ago, and with the determination by the world leaders that there should be net zero by 2050, which means there should be total elimination of fossil fuel or greenhouse gases emission to the climate, which will go a long way in mitigating and reducing climate change. So the focus now has been turned to renewable sources so that we have a sustainable environment. This really has opened up doors and opportunities for us, young ones, to see what we can do. How can we tap into such opportunities? How can we key into this new trend and make the best use of it? It gives me great pleasure really to have this kind of discussion in this kind of forum, because I've seen really young ones, very young kids coming up with so many innovative ideas that goes a long way in bringing out some kind of solutions to what we face currently. I remember sometimes last year, there was a challenge put up by United Nations, UNDP in particular, and New York City University, the GovLab, where it chose 5 different cities in 5 different African countries to come up with innovative solutions to municipal solid waste. We pitched a solution to that. My company, my colleague actually led that campaign. And these young guys also pitched their own solution. Ours, we call it Zero Bola, which means zero waste in Kano. We came up with an innovative solution on how to manage and create wealth out of this waste being generated in Kano City. And those guys also pitch theirs, where they use agricultural waste to create coal, cooking coal, which they call it dry coal, so that the energy now, as against using firewood and other unfriendly sources of energy for cooking and what have you, They are now using environmental friendly, they created environmental friendly source of cooking from agricultural waste. So these two projects, or these two innovative ideas, actually compete against one another with so many others across the five cities that was chosen in 5 different African countries. I remember in Nigeria, Kano was chosen. That was why from Kano we were able to pitch for that. Accra was chosen from Ghana. Mutari, I think, in Zimbabwe. Bahel there in Ethiopia. And I think is it Kampala in Uganda? I can't remember the fifth one actually, but 5 different cities in 5 different African countries. We were fortunate, we won the city challenge, while those guys won the multi-city challenge. Now, theirs really is higher than ours in terms of the category of the award, because theirs was multi-city challenge, which means their solution can easily be replicated across other participating cities or participating countries, or not only those participating countries, but any other place people do good from every day. People create waste from the produce they produce, and what they can do those waste from that produce, and they convert into what they want rival to actually get energy from it. So they won the multi-city challenge while we won the city challenge category. And it was really interesting because these are undergraduates. They are undergraduate. I think last year one of them was in either level 3 or 2. That was the highest. No, I think one was in level 3 and all the others were in level 2. So as undergraduates, they came together, put their heads together, and were able to come up with a very innovative solution that propelled them into the limelight, not only within Nigeria, but across African countries and the globe. If they had not think through, if they have not looked at their immediate environment and look at the opportunity that renewable energy provides, they wouldn't have come up with this very innovative idea. And by doing so, their solution, what they intend to do was to build such facilities in different segments of the economy or region of the state, so that it will employ not less than 10,000 people, per outlet where they will be producing that bright bulb from. So also us, we had wanted to turn around the way waste is being disposed, create engineered landfills, generate biomethane from municipal solid waste, or bioconcentrated natural gas from which can be used to power oil and generate electricity. And then, of course, other resource recovery, such as organic fertilizer, and then it will go along with reducing vector diseases, and thereby bringing down the health bill of the state and individuals at large. So these are some of these innovative ideas that we need to really begin to look at. What are the opportunities that renewable energy space provides? What does it be? What are the opportunities it present to us? And then see how we can key in to those opportunities abound within this space. We're heading towards what is called AFRA, Africa Continental free trade, where Nigeria is significant, almost all the African countries are signatories to that. If it is just like EU, so which means there will be competition going forward, not only amongst countries within the African continent, but rather cities within African countries. Now, if this is the case, then what are the opportunities? How do we position ourselves, to meet the challenges ahead? We can only do that if we decide to be innovative. If we begin to look inwardly and see what are the opportunities that abound, and how do we tap and turn around those opportunities into wealth. With the drive now of net zero, of climate change, reducing carbon emission, and renewable energy is gaining grounds. So we really have to look at the opportunities that renewable energy infrastructure provides for economic development. These resources are there within our reach, at our fingertips, but all we need to do is convert that opportunity, convert those resources so that it will not only create wealth, but it will go a long way in contributing to the net zero drive. In cross synergy, we try to collaborate with institutions like this to see how we come up with innovative solutions. Most of these universities, they have renewable energy centers, but then how do they use such facilities? It will be good for this university as well as its students to have such facility here, to begin to collaborate with developers like ourselves, those of us that are in the industry, so that it provides the young ones with opportunities about the renewable energy space. Just as the last presenter was talking about Nigerian universities turn out thousands of graduates every year, and then there are no thousands of jobs to absorb those graduates. Now, those graduates really need to be gainfully employed. They are now into the larger society, and if they don't find something doing, then the positivity in them will turn to negativity. So it's an opportunity for us to actually drive them into seeing opportunities in this space, so that they can easily key into it. And by so doing, then we are going to create wealth. I would like to see these universities setting up a renewable energy center, where it will begin to actually mentor its students into this space. And it doesn't take rocket science to be in this space. I don't read anything near renewable energy. I read geography in my first degree. I did a postgraduate diploma in business management and master's in environmental management. So my drive, my passion to be in this space was purely from a from entrepreneurial point of view, really, not that because I'm an engineer or anything like that. But I've seen the opportunities there. I'm keen into those opportunities, so that I will now turn those opportunities into wealth. And we can only do this collectively if we come together, put our heads together, put our resources together, and then we reach where we want to get. when I mentioned after, I know that the opportunities once that competition comes out between cities and cities within the African continent, it entirely depends on how fast you can turn around goods and services. And now you can only turn around goods and services very fast if you have reliable sources of energy. And there is no better way to have a reliable sources of energy than from a renewable source. A lot of people are saying solar do not work, which I always try to tell them that no, it does work really. It entirely depends on how that solar system is constructed. Really good. If it's not done well and it is not done by those that knows how to do it, then of course it won't work. But if you get the right people that knows and have the skills to set it up for you, it certainly will work. Industries now are turning to solar as the major source of energy now. So there is no enterprise that will work without reliable sources of energy. And there is no better reliable sources of energy than those coming from renewable sources, particularly now with solar, which is why we have it standalone as against the those from the hydro, which has to go through, unless of course you have a stream around your area, it's actually going to be counted just for that place. And of course, the biomass, the sources of getting the gas from waste, so that you can use it to power your genset and generate electricity. But by and large, no economy will go way forward without a reliable source of energy. And these are the opportunities that renewable energy presents to us, to everyone, so that once we turn to renewable energy, we'll be able to compete with our brothers across the continent and meet the Africa free continental opportunities that it will present, and not just within the African continent, but globally. And it will also go a long way in giving our own contribution to the climate change as well as the drive for net zero. So I would really like to see how this comes up with a way to set up a renewable energy center so that the students will be availed with opportunities within this space. There are so many other individuals in the industry that have set up training institutions where they train young ones in solar installation, solar repairs, different value chain of the system. We do have such private institutions now in Nigeria that are doing that for young ones, so that they acquire the necessary skills in the space. And for as long as we'll be turning out thousands of graduates and those thousands of jobs to absorb them, then we have to be very innovative in coming up with solutions that those graduates will be able to stand on their feet when they get out of the system or out of university. And these are the opportunities we provide. I remember after Brighton, which had these guys are still on the project and in PUG's dimension is so that they know. I don't think that none of them has graduated yet, but they are making great contribution in this space. And of course, people now always ask funding and what have you. I know funding for projects is not easy to come by, but then there are opportunities where one pitches one idea, his own solutions, and then once it meets the requirement of those asking for such innovative ideas, you get funding for it. I know Brightcall, they were given some kind of support by European Union when they want that. Uh, we are also on the verge of getting some kind of support from UNDP for winning the multi-city, for winning the city challenge on zero polar. Of course, there are so many other opportunities. Once you reach a very innovative idea, very good solution, uh, there are organizations out there that are really, really interested. And not only those international organizations and donor agencies, even locally here, we have a lot of people and a lot of organizations that look towards or forward, to meeting uh, very good innovative ideas that they can keep into and support it and make it live. For us, we are always open to see how we collaborate and bring one another on board and move forward so that together we go through the journey of renewable energy space. I think I would like to stop here with the few things I've said, unless of course there's questions, answer that from everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Vice Chancellor Hussein. I can see you online, but your mic seems to be muted. Yes, you can go ahead with
Sorry, I couldn't hear you actually. After his presentation, I was expecting you to maybe give me
All right,
the
so
floor to speak.
go ahead, you can start now.
All right, thank you so much, sir.
All right, so you can present now.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
You have the
My
access.
presentation will be
We can see it now.
okay. Thank you so much. So my presentation will be on the fourth industrial revolution, and then talking about its impact on graduate employability in the legal industry. I am Husseini, a partner at Erufai Attorneys. So As an introduction to the topic, I want to make a little comment about the fourth industrial revolution itself. It's a revolution that, an industrial revolution that is characterized by the fusion of technologies that is blurring the lines between the physical and the biological spheres. This has created a lot of challenges for businesses and industries to make certain amendments to key into the position of things based on the requirements of their business. On that note, I try to bring out the scope of this presentation, in which I try to set it out that we're just going to discuss the skills and capabilities that now a legal practitioner or a student of law must try to acquire in order to be able to remain relevant in the business of law. And doing this, I try to use, even though, fourth industrial revolution is a global phenomenon, I try to use Nigeria or development of law in Nigeria as a case study for us to understand how successive political, commercial, and infrastructural developments define the way law is practiced in Nigeria, and how, of course, it also defines the way law is practiced across the globe. I use a template provided by Mr. Obi Okoye, who is a senior lecturer in the Nigerian Law School. He put in the development of law in three categories. The first category is the period between 1876 and 1914, and then the period between 1914 and 1962, and then the period between 1962 and, of course, this time that we are. So, in the period between 1976 and 1914, some parts of, let me say largely, a lot of part of Nigeria are under British rule. And at that time, there was a special consideration that was given to Lagos as a colony of the British Empire. So there was an ordinance that was promulgated in 1963, which creates a Supreme Court upon which, on which the laws of England were extended to be applicable in Lagos. So around that time, having a court now necessitated that lawyers to man those courts have to be made available. And this made the British colonial government now to say, okay, they are going to, to introduce yet another ordinance in 1876, which now gives certain people or some categories of people the opportunity to practice in Nigeria. So there were three categories of people at that time. There were lawyers who were trained in England and were qualified as barristers or solicitors. So that those lawyers were made upon enrollment in Nigeria to practice both as barristers and solicitors. Here I want to reiterate that there in the UK, where they were trained is for them to practice as either a barrister or solicitors. But they were given this double rank in Nigeria because there was a paucity of lawyers. So another category of people were just people who worked with law firms. So those who work with a practicing lawyer, like who articled with that practicing lawyer for 5 years, they'll be given an opportunity to practice. And then the third category were local attorneys. Local attorneys mean like anybody on the street can just apply to the Chief Justice of Nigeria at that time to say, okay, I want to practice law. If he deems that person to be fit and proper and has and can just practice as a lawyer, he will give him a warrant to practice. So around that time, in accordance with the development, it was clear that what was required of a lawyer to effectively practice in those courts or effectively do the job of a lawyer were very few. Sorry. So the skills that were required for a lawyer to give those services were basic, were very few. Something that you can just, a client can just run to your office, tell you something that he has a problem, believe that you can just stand before the court and just state it in that way. And the court at that time do not go into the thorough need of that qualification of what makes a lawyer. So I tried to bring out what I believe were the skills that were only required at that time. Like, can you listen to the client? Can you analyze what is his problem? And can you go to court to speak on his behalf? That's why I categorized the skills required at that time to be interviewing skill, analytical skills, and then spoken advocacy skill. So after that time, we came to, Nigeria, or the areas that were to become Nigeria came to the period between 1914 and 1962. We all know that 1914, sorry, let me say, Nigeria, parts of Nigeria, that's the Northern Protectorate, and then the Southern Protectorate were joined to become Nigeria, in 1914. So that unification of many parts of the countries, which hitherto had different type of laws or traditions that govern them. For example, in northern Nigeria, there was already effect of the Osman Danfodio Caliphate, which actually was imposing Sharia law around the spheres of the northern part of the country. So if that unification was made, there was definitely a need for new definition of how a lawyer should practice, or who is qualified to become a lawyer. At that time then, the need for more qualified lawyers came up, and issuance of license to practice for people like the local attorneys who at the time had no specific qualification was stopped. That time was also equally around the time that we crossed over from the second industrial revolution to the third, and then the fusion of the third and fourth industrial revolution. That's around 1962. So even at that time, there were typewriters, there were computers, typewriters that lawyers could use to type their documents and go to court. But then in 1960, Nigeria gained its independence. Now, around 1962, there was a committee that was formed, that's the Unsworth Committee, which recommended that Nigeria now has come of age and it should have its own legal system. So that was when the Legal Education Act was passed in 1962, and then Nigeria Law School was brought into existence in 1963. So that was when certain people which were trained based on Nigerian laws, and then based on the Nigerian political and commercial system and all its differences, were trained to indeed practice law. So so after that period, we now coming to talk about the period between 1962 till date, and that is around the time that the fourth industrial revolution set in, and then it kept moving up to this period. So around that time, there was need for changes on how we develop our practice, how lawyers go to court, and how they do other businesses which are outside court. If I may quote this statement by Nakamba, I think a legal counsel in the Bank of Zambia, he said, sorry, much has been said and written about the fourth industrial revolution, but it's clear that the key success factor to survive in this transformation world is the ability to adapt to changing standards and requirements. In most cases, this will involve drastic changes on how one does their work and new technologies. Like with all other industries and professions, digital technologies are and will be employed in the delivery of legal services. Once incorporated, digital technologies will enhance the delivery of legal services. So, not only about the delivery of legal services, at this time we had the invent or coming of the internet. And of course, those in cyber law will understand that there were a lot of hues and cries and a lot of agitation against even legislation over the internet. People believe that since the internet does not reside in any part of anybody's country, no country should say that it's going to govern the internet. So these are some of the challenges that were coming up. We had people like Barlow, which made his famous declaration of the independence of the cyberspace, in which he stated that the cyberspace does not reside in anywhere. It's both not anywhere and nowhere. It's everywhere and nowhere. So no country had the power or has the power in its own belief to govern the internet. These are some of the challenges that came up. And now the legal profession was moved to think about all these changes. Since the legal practitioners are those who actually advise governments and institutions on policy making and strategies, there has to, that policy making and strategy that deals with law and legal practice, that has to be those same lawyers that will now start thinking around how can they treat this and how can they move into to solve the problem on ground. So now the coming of fourth industrial revolution creates some changes. These changes are not exhaustive, but I've tried to list some here. For example, by the coming of the internet, the fourth industrial revolution gives an opportunity for litigants to have electronic filings, for example, for cases. There was a need for, virtual hearings in court, virtual meetings, document sharings, electronic research, and then there were innovations like the Internet of Things, which actually challenge, as I earlier said, the legal experts to think beyond the four walls of probably what they have known before on how they can bring in either regulations to control or define the workings of those innovations, or they should create or they should get ready to see how they can use this innovation also to take advantage of them in providing legal services. So, and then there were issues of protection of intellectual property rights. Now, there is the internet. Before, we used to have what is called, for example, let me say we still have Untitled injunction, for example, in courts, where if someone believes that his intellectual property right has been breached, probably if it's, say, for example, a music record, and you find out that somewhere, somewhere somebody is producing that particular music record without your consent, that's the breach of someone's intellectual property right. One can go to court secretly between that person and the judge or his lawyer, get an order of Untitled. That order can give that person the right to get the relevant security agencies to come and break into that place and get some evidence against that person in preparation for a court case against him. That's Untitled injunction. Now, by the coming of the internet, peer-to-peer sharing is still existent. People now do not breach people's IP rights through discs or through production of discs or records. They actually do it by just peer-to-peer interaction, peer-to-peer sharing. And now the question that comes up to legal experts is, how can you define this? Even IP lawyers or IP professionals are concerned about this. If, for example, my record has been, the intellectual property over my record as a musician has been breached in the UK, how can I enforce my right there? How can I enforce my right in Nigeria? And then where have I registered my intellectual property, or where have I registered generally trademark or anything? Does the registration of my trademark in Nigeria prevent someone from breaching that right in the UK? That informed the coming of WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization. All these things is simply because we had the challenge, and the challenge was real, and people had to come up to solve the problem. And then there was need for protection against cyber crimes. Today, people go out to online, connect with some people, commit a lot of crimes, which actually raise a lot of questions that only lawyers or professionals who are ready to look into that new challenge, that will be able to provide answers to it. This provides, this creates, informed the coming of like the Cyber Crimes Act in Nigeria, or Cyber Crimes Protection Act in Nigeria. So, and then having these challenges on ground, we understand that even before the coming of COVID, there was already some legislations that were provided in order to govern or define the way certain things are done in the legal industry. Let me give you an example. In 2017, the National Industrial Court of Nigeria introduced a new rules. In that same rule, there was an e-filing section that was created. There was opportunity for people to file their cases online, to do a lot of things through electronic means. But up to the time that COVID broke in, there was not full implementation. In fact, there wasn't any implementation of that part of the procedure. And then, unfortunately, COVID came in 2020, and now each and every decision maker and each and every person in the legal industry, most especially the judicial arm of government, now started to think around how they can provide solution to this. The National Judicial Council provided some rules upon which, sorry, okay. So the National Judicial Council provided rules on how courts can actually continue their hearing even during COVID through electronic means. Like, for example, the first virtual hearing of court was done by the Chief Judge of Maiduguri, Borno State. And then a lot of other courts created all this, platform for virtual hearing. Also, law offices were not left out. A lot of law offices went out to get virtual solutions, virtual platforms that will provide solutions to their service delivery problems around COVID. Even before COVID, for example, in our former office, Najeeb Mahmud, we had already had subscription for Microsoft 365, within which we had virtual hearings, virtual communications with our clients. We also had opportunity to use SharePoint to create, to review documents between us or with the client. When COVID came in, we were able to continue with that, and that actually helped us to remain afloat. So Najeeb Mahmud at that time was fully in operation, despite the fact that we were all at home. And now every attorneys, we still have that. So this was what actually kept our office going and maintained the revenue that was coming in. So now, having stated the challenges that, the changes that the fourth industrial revolution has brought through technology, what are the main reasons why people are now willing to make technology or the innovation in technology to be the defining factor or deciding factor on who they are going to engage as clients or who they are going to engage as employees in the legal market? First, you see, all these innovations save time. So the fact that I don't need to create a meeting with my client while he's in his at the comfort of his bed, we can set up a meeting, speak with him wherever he is from around the world. I think I should welcome that, because that, having the fact that probably we need to meet with him may create a lot of inconveniences between either on me as the service provider or the client. So once the client knows that if he comes to me, he doesn't have that problem, then he's already ready to go with me. He's likely to go with me. And then also it saves energy and resources. If you come to the office, for example, the amount of spendings on certain infrastructure will be more on an employer than when you even work from home. And if that is available for an employer, he definitely has saved cost on his running of the business. All businessmen are after profit, and most people in the legal industry are also after profit. So all these things are taken into consideration to see how revenues will be coming, and of course, minimization of spendings on running of the business. So now, having discussed that, I want to discuss finally this topic on how one can obtain the necessary skills for the practice of law within the fourth industrial revolution. You see, to understand this, I tried to get the definition of skill itself by the Black's Law Dictionary. It says skills is a special ability and proficiency, especially the practical and familiar knowledge of the principles and process of an art, science, or trade, combined with the ability to apply them appropriately with readiness and dexterity. Skill is generally considered more than mere competence. It is a special competence that is not part of the reasonable person's ordinary equipment, but that results from aptitude cultivated through special training and experience. This particular definition has already put it out to us that for one to acquire a skill, one needs to go beyond the ordinary. Ordinarily, we all know that every lawyer is expected to have an advocacy skill, his ability to speak, his ability to write, his ability to do all that is ordinarily required of a lawyer. However, the fourth industrial revolution has come to tell you that you can do this, you can do this, you can do that. If you can't operate in an environment that requires you to go beyond the ordinary, an environment that requires you to use a lot of resources that will simplify your work, one will believe the experience of either the local attorneys, which I earlier mentioned in the 1980s, or the warrant lawyers who probably do not know beyond picking a book or writing or typing something and picking and just to argue before the court. I've already mentioned earlier that there are virtual court hearings now, and there is also front loading. People send their documents directly to court, and it's the document that speaks for them. And research now is done online. We have the Law Pavilion, which gives you a technology solution that gives you the opportunity to reach a lot of legal resources online. And if I am a draftsman, I will rather use that, and because it saves my time for me to pick up. It's better than me. It's far better than me going to a physical library, picking up a book, and then start typing an authority that I want to argue in court. It saves my time. So now, still talking about how you get that skill. Since skill is said to be practical and not theoretical, I always try to advise anybody that comes to me for advice, as far as the practice of law is concerned, or getting into the rightful position in the legal industry today. I advise people, most especially students or people who want me to mentor them, that one, there are certain skills that people now bring out and listed them for a lawyer to obtain. One of the skills is, one of the authors I read listed about 7 skills, and in those skills it included analytical skills, research, these about 7 of them. But in my view, I always insist that when you come about the need for a lawyer within the fourth industrial revolution, I narrow it down into one thing. I call it commercial awareness. You ask yourself as a lawyer or a law student, are you aware of the market today? Are you aware of what a lawyer needs to know today? Today I know of a lot of lawyers who are employed and operate from abroad. One of our friends recently got employed while he's while he was doing his, master's in Dundee, and that law firm was ready and willing to employ him, and he has already reported and started working. Like, lawyers and law firms are no longer interested in what you can physically offer muchly, but what you can be able to offer to them within wherever you are. We have passed that stage that we see ourselves, lawyers, as just picking up wig and gown and running to court. So I advise for one to be commercially aware. I have put in earlier, I have read for us the definition of skill from the Black's Dictionary. And in that definition, we have seen that skill is beyond the ordinary and is practical, not theoretical. So I advise people to, one, why not use your vacation periods to intern in a good law firm or companies that have good legal departments, or you can go to courts. If you want to be like an advocate, you can go to court, depending on your choice. If you want to be a solicitor, you can get a company, go to that company, intern, see how they use their resources. And much law firms are willing to do this. And let me pause here to commend Bayes University, because over the last, I think, 1 year, I have been working with some students of Bayes University on a pretrial pro bono legal services that is provided by lawyers to inmates in Kuje prison. And those students that I've been working with have been very, very impressive. And interestingly, there is one Mr. Salau whom I gave something to draft, and he was able to draft it. And I believe today, most of what employers want to see is how employable that person is. Mr. Onadeko, one of the former Director Generals of the Nigerian Law School, was, in one of his articles I read, was very furious about why today lawyers will be produced from universities without actually having the requisite skills that are required of them as lawyers. So they are expecting, he was saying that the time given for the law school to train a student to the expectation of the general public is very limited. So he was vehemently pointing out that there was need in his own even proposal. He said there is need for lawyers to intern even after call to bar in the present dispensation for about 5 years in law offices. So I think that I may not 100% support, but I would recommend that law students should go to relevant institutions and intern themselves. And I would also commend the effort of Bayes University on its collaboration with NULI about the RPDN program that we are doing with them. So I also recommend that lawyers or law students should try and be attending available online courses, not generally which talks about law. No, just look at an IT course talking about, for example, for example, like Internet of Things. Anything that you believe is quite new to you, understand it. Tomorrow, somebody that wants to deal with something that deals with that will come to you. Recently, a company from Kano came to us and briefed us as their secretaries. Sorry, hello? Okay. So, like, if we were not ready to, if that company did not see us as ready to offer to them the services they want, they wouldn't have returned us. So, and also I would recommend that every lawyer or law student should follow every development in the industry, and not only in the legal industry, sorry, in the IT world. Everything that is happening, a lawyer should follow it, and that lawyer should look at it and then make sure that he's fully aware of that. So, in conclusion, I'm always my final word to law students, most especially attending this training, is for one to get ready to be commercially aware. Once you are commercially aware as a lawyer, I can assure you, or law student, I can assure you that everything you within this challenging time will be easy for you to achieve. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Bayes University, and I hope I am able to talk to the topic. Thank you.